Imagine if every person who has ever entered the town was never meant to escape. Not because the roads are cursed, not because the monsters are impossible to defeat, but because the town itself is not a prison. It's a machine. A machine that studies one thing, fear. And every death, every nightmare, every impossible event is simply another experiment. Because the most terrifying theory about From isn't that the monsters are hunting the people. It's that the monsters aren't the ones in control anymore. Something else is. Something that doesn't care who survives. As long as everyone keeps producing fear. And once you look at the show through this lens, nothing looks the same again. Every conversation changes. Every strange coincidence suddenly feels planned. Even the moments that looked random begin fitting together, like pieces of one giant design. But here's what changes everything. The town never actually tries to kill everyone.
Think about that.
If the creatures truly wanted every human dead, they could have finished the job years ago. The monsters are stronger. They're faster. They're patient. They've surrounded houses countless times. Yet every single cycle leaves survivors behind.
Why?
That's not the real mystery. The real mystery is why the town always preserves just enough people to keep the story going. Look at what the show is actually telling us. Every time hope begins disappearing, something unexpected happens. A new family arrives. Someone discovers food. Someone finds a clue. Someone receives a vision. Someone survives when survival makes absolutely no sense. Almost like the town is constantly adjusting itself. Not to save people, but to keep the experiment alive. Because an experiment ends when there are no more subjects. And this is where it gets darker. What if every impossible event inside the town isn't chaos? It's maintenance. Think back to the Matthews family arriving. Their RV crashes into a place that shouldn't exist. Every road loops back. There are no exits. No logical explanation. Most viewers assumed this was simply supernatural. But notice something strange. The town doesn't randomly collect thousands of people. It chooses very specific individuals. Families with emotional fractures. People carrying guilt. People running from something. People hiding secrets. Jim believes logic can solve everything. Tabitha carries emotional scars beneath her calm exterior. Julie struggles between childhood and adulthood. Ethan constantly sees patterns that adults ignore. Each person enters already psychologically vulnerable. That isn't coincidence. That's selection. This is the detail everyone missed. The monsters almost never rush. They smile. They talk. They persuade. They pretend to be kind.
Why?
Predators don't need conversations. Hunters don't ask permission. But researchers do. Researchers observe behavior. They wait. They measure reactions. Fear isn't just about dying. Fear grows larger when hope exists. That's exactly how the creatures behave. They don't simply attack. They create decisions. Should someone open the window? Should someone trust the voice outside? Should someone sacrifice another person? Should someone tell the truth? Every choice creates emotional pressure. Every emotional response creates data. Suddenly, those smiling faces become even more disturbing. Because maybe they aren't smiling from hunger. Maybe they're watching the experiment succeed. But here's another question nobody asks. Why do the rules keep changing? Early on, everyone believes the talismans create safety. Then new exceptions appear. People experience dreams that physically hurt them. Music becomes dangerous. Cicadas appear. Nightmares begin crossing into reality. Then strange children appear. Then impossible visions. Then people begin influencing events through memories. The rules aren't stable. Machines update. Experiments evolve. Protocols change. And that's exactly what we keep seeing. Each season introduces new variables instead of repeating old ones. Almost like someone is testing what happens when pressure increases. First, physical danger. Then psychological danger. Then spiritual danger. Every stage becomes more personal than the last. And every survivor becomes harder to predict. That isn't random storytelling. That's controlled escalation. Now think about Victor. No character understands the town better. Yet even Victor admits he doesn't understand everything. He's lived through multiple generations. He's seen entire communities disappear. He remembers events nobody else can verify. But somehow, Victor always survives.
Why?
Many viewers think Victor is simply lucky. I don't. I think Victor is necessary. Every experiment needs a control subject. Someone who remains while everything else changes. Victor watches new arrivals. Victor watches people break. Victor remembers previous cycles. He's almost like living memory preserved inside the system. Not because he's special, but because someone wants him to remember. And if that's true, then Victor isn't surviving despite the town. He's surviving because of it. That possibility changes everything we thought we knew about him. But don't stop there. Look carefully at what happens whenever people get close to discovering real answers. Someone dies. Someone disappears. Someone loses their mind. A new mystery replaces the old one. Information never arrives completely. It's always interrupted, always fragmented, always redirected. Almost like the town doesn't hide the truth. It controls the speed at which the truth is revealed. And if knowledge itself is being managed, then the people aren't simply trapped inside the town. They're trapped inside a carefully controlled psychological system. A system that rewards curiosity. Only until curiosity becomes dangerous. And once that line is crossed, the town always responds. But the next piece of evidence may be the darkest one yet. Because it suggests the monsters aren't creating fear at all. They're simply collecting it. What if every scream in the town is serving a purpose? Not emotionally, not symbolically, literally. Because once we accept the possibility that fear is something the town collects, a disturbing pattern begins to appear. Every major event seems designed to produce the strongest emotional reaction possible, not the highest body count. And this is where it gets darker. The monsters almost never choose the fastest kill. They choose the most painful one. They stand outside windows for hours. They whisper familiar names. They imitate loved ones. They wait for someone to make the mistake themselves. Look at what the show is actually telling us. A creature could simply smash through the glass if pure violence were the goal. But instead, it convinces someone to unlock the window. It wants the victim to participate in their own downfall.
Why?
Because fear created by betrayal is stronger than fear created by surprise. The town doesn't just create terror. It manufactures guilt. And guilt lasts much longer than fear. Think about every survivor after an attack. They don't only mourn the dead. They blame themselves. I should have stayed. I should have listened. I should have closed the window. I should have gone with them. Those words appear again and again throughout the series. That cannot be an accident. This is the detail everyone missed. Almost every tragedy leaves behind someone who believes they caused it. That emotional wound keeps growing long after the monsters disappear. It's almost as if the real attack begins after sunrise. Because broken people are easier to manipulate. Now, let's talk about the boy in white. Most viewers immediately assumed he represents hope. But has he actually rescued anyone? Or has he simply redirected them? Every time he appears, people move toward another mystery. Another tunnel. Another tree. Another impossible location. He gives just enough information to keep someone moving. Never enough to truly escape. But here's what changes everything. Imagine the boy in white isn't trying to free anyone. Imagine he's making sure the experiment continues. That would explain why his guidance is always incomplete. He doesn't lie. He simply never reveals enough. That difference matters. Because someone controlling an experiment doesn't want subjects to fail immediately. They also don't want them to succeed too quickly. They need balance. Enough hope to keep trying. Enough despair to keep suffering. And suddenly the boy in white becomes far more unsettling. Not evil. Not good. Necessary. Now think about the faraway trees. Everyone sees them as magical shortcuts. Doorways between impossible places. But what do they actually accomplish? They separate people. They isolate them. They create confusion. No one truly controls where they'll end up. Every journey increases uncertainty. Every destination creates another puzzle. Notice the pattern? Nothing in the town actually reduces fear. Every discovery creates 2 new mysteries. Every answer opens 3 more questions. That's exactly how an endless experiment stays alive. Because certainty ends observation. Uncertainty keeps people reacting. And reactions are exactly what this place seems to value. Now, consider the music box. One of the strangest objects in the entire series. At first, it appears completely disconnected from the monsters. A different threat. A different force. But is it? Think about its effect. The music doesn't physically attack people. It invades their minds. Sleep becomes dangerous. Dreams become weapons. Reality starts breaking apart. The victims begin questioning their own sanity. That's not physical horror. That's psychological pressure. Almost like the town reached a point where ordinary monsters were no longer enough. The experiment had to evolve. Fear had adapted. So the system adapted too. And that's something we've seen repeatedly. Every time the survivors become stronger, the town becomes stranger. When they learn how to survive the night, the nightmares begin. When they organize as a community, their trust starts collapsing. When they search underground, they discover something even worse. The danger always shifts, never disappears. That isn't the behavior of a curse. It's the behavior of something constantly testing new variables. Now, let's focus on Jade. Jade may be the smartest person trapped in the town. Unlike many others, he refuses to accept impossible things without searching for patterns. He treats every symbol like a puzzle, every vision like evidence, every mystery like a code waiting to be solved. But notice something fascinating. The more Jade understands, the more unstable his reality becomes. He doesn't become safer. He becomes more haunted. Visions increase. Hallucinations grow stronger. The symbols begin following him, almost as if the town recognizes intelligence as a threat. That raises an uncomfortable possibility. Knowledge itself may trigger the system, not because answers are forbidden, but because certain answers could end the experiment. And, if that's true, then Jade isn't simply solving mysteries. He's pushing against the limits of whatever intelligence is controlling the town. Now compare Jade to Boyd. Boyd fights physically. Jade fights intellectually. Yet both encounter resistance. Boyd loses certainty. Jade loses clarity. Different methods. Same outcome. Neither is allowed to move too far ahead. Because every time someone approaches a breakthrough, the town changes the rules again. Coincidence? Or design? And this is where the entire theory flips upside down. Maybe the people aren't trying to escape the town. Maybe the town is trying to prevent itself from being understood. Because once something is fully understood, it stops being feared. And if fear is the fuel keeping this place alive, understanding becomes the single greatest threat. Which means the final battle of From may never be against the monsters. It may be against the intelligence that's been rewriting the experiment from the very beginning. And if that's true, Season May 4th finally reveal who has been watching every choice, every death, and every moment of fear all along. But what if we've been asking the wrong question this entire time? For years, everyone inside the town has been obsessed with one goal. How do we get out? But maybe that's exactly what the town wants them to ask. Because if everyone is focused on escaping, no one is asking who built the system in the first place. That's not the real mystery. The real mystery is who benefits from keeping the experiment alive. And once you ask that question, every major character begins to look completely different. Take Boyd. From the beginning, Boyd has been the town's leader. He's the one who creates order when chaos takes over. He gives people hope, organizes supplies, makes impossible decisions, and somehow keeps everyone moving forward. At first, that makes him the town's greatest hero. But look at what the show is actually telling us. Every time Boyd inspires people, the town answers with an even greater disaster. He finds the talismans. The town introduces new horrors. He restores hope. The music box appears. He starts believing they can fight back. The nightmares become real. It's almost as if the system reacts specifically to Boyd's success. Not because Boyd is failing, but because hope itself forces the experiment to evolve. Without Boyd, people would eventually give up. The experiment would end. With Boyd, They keep fighting. They keep believing. And they keep producing exactly what the town needs. Fear mixed with hope. The strongest emotional combination possible. Now think about Donna. Donna has always insisted on survival before answers. Protect the people. Keep the food coming. Don't take unnecessary risks. Many viewers see her as overly cautious. But what if she's unknowingly playing the role the town needs most? Every experiment needs stability. Someone has to keep the subjects alive long enough for the next phase. Donna constantly rebuilds the community after every tragedy. She restores routines, creates normality, makes people believe tomorrow still matters. Without her, society would collapse. And if society collapses, the experiment loses its structure. Then there's Tabitha, perhaps the most important piece of the puzzle. She's the only person who appeared to leave the town. She woke up in the outside world. Everyone believed that was proof escape was possible. But here's what changes everything. Did she actually escape? Or was she moved to another level of the experiment? Think carefully. She didn't return with rescue teams. She didn't expose the town. She didn't bring the military. Instead, she was drawn right back, almost effortlessly, as if leaving had always been part of the plan. If that's true, then the outside world we saw may not have been freedom at all. It may have been another observation chamber, a place where the experiment measures something entirely different. Hope after escape. Imagine how terrifying that would be. You finally believe you've won. You finally believe the nightmare is over, only to discover you've never left the system. That possibility is far more frightening than any monster, because it means there may not be an outside. Only larger layers of the same machine. And this is where it gets darker. The town constantly creates impossible symbols. The bottle tree, the talismans, the children, the music, the voices, the visions. Most fans try to connect them as separate mysteries. But what if they're all speaking the same language? Not a human language, a system language. Think about a computer. Different warning lights, different sounds, different error messages, different notifications. They all look unrelated, but they're produced by one operating system. What if every supernatural event in From is exactly that? Different outputs, one intelligence, one designer, one purpose. That would explain why completely different phenomena always seem connected in the end. They're not separate monsters. They're different tools, different functions, different ways of pushing human psychology toward the same destination.
Fear.
Confusion.
Choice. Loss. Repeat.
Cycle after cycle. Generation after generation. And then there's Victor, the one character who has lived through more cycles than anyone else. What if Victor isn't just remembering history? What if he's remembering previous versions of the experiment? Entire populations erased, rules rewritten, variables adjusted, communities replaced. Victor's drawings suddenly become more than childhood memories. They become archived data, a visual record of every failed version that came before. That's why he protects them. Not because they're sentimental, because they're evidence. Evidence that the town has changed before. Evidence that someone keeps resetting the board whenever the experiment reaches its limit. And suddenly one terrifying possibility becomes impossible to ignore. Maybe no one has ever escaped. Not once. Every story about escape, every glimpse of hope, every apparent victory, could simply be another phase designed to produce an even greater emotional collapse later. Because nothing creates fear like hope being taken away. And if this theory is true, then Season 4 isn't building toward an escape. It's building toward a revelation. The revelation that the monsters were never the final enemy. They were employees. The tunnels were never their home. They were their workplace. The town wasn't created to trap people. It was created to observe them, to test them,
To break them.
and somewhere beyond everything we've seen, there may be an intelligence that has been watching every decision from the very beginning. Not with anger, not with hatred, but with curiosity. The kind of curiosity that only an experiment requires. Which leads to one final question. If fear is the true purpose of the town, then what happens the moment someone stops being afraid? Could that be the one thing the experiment was never designed to survive? Or would the town simply create an even greater nightmare until fear returns once again?